Good afternoon, all. Welcome to another edition, the afternoon session. My name's Adam Duval, the mental health warrior, and I am joined for the very first time in a while by the brilliant Karen McEwan. Welcome back.
Hello, Adam. Good afternoon. Good to see you again.
It's an honour. It really is an honour. And you've informed me it's World Lupus Day.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me on to raise awareness on World Lupus Day.
Yeah. So, it's been quite a long time since I've had you on. All I've got to say is, what have you been up to?
What have I been up to? Well, I've got clients all around the world who come and talk to me about lupus, and I look after them. So I'm an international health coach and psychotherapist specializing in lupus. And I wrote a book 2 years ago now, How to Stay Sane in Pain, Clarity, Resilience and Calm with Lupus. And that opens a lot of doors for me. People still write to me and say that they value the book enormously, and it's had very, very good feedback from the lupus community, and lots of lovely reviews, and 5-star rated on Amazon.
Fantastic.
So yeah, I'm keeping myself busy.
So a little bit of a heads up, if I come across American, as my partner keeps saying I do, please let me know. Please just let me know.
That's all right. I'm quite used to American. I have American clients that and of course everything is online now. So with the pandemic, just taken everything by video.
I'm not American though. I live in the UK. Always have.
No, I don't think that's an American accent, Adam. I don't think it is.
It's probably just northern.
Probably just northern. Yes.
The American accent hasn't started yet.
Go to school. Oh, my partner. Anyway, so for the last year, we've both been busy. Like, I've been following your stuff on LinkedIn. You've got this book, which I need to get hold of. And yeah, it is. People need to, why do people not recognize lupus?
That's a very interesting question. It's actually, there are 5 million people in the world who are currently diagnosed with lupus, and it's actually more widespread than muscular dystrophy, leukemia, multiple sclerosis combined. And yet it's really still quite a mysterious disease, and people don't know about it, don't understand it. I think it's because it's quite complicated to diagnose, and it's famously underdiagnosed, misdiagnosed, and wrongly diagnosed. So about 72, latest research that's come out of Cambridge University in 2020 found that about 72% of people who were eventually diagnosed with lupus were diagnosed with something else beforehand. So it's really, really important you doing something like this, and why I work and write and you know, continue to do interviews and things, is to raise awareness of it, because I'm quite convinced that there are people who are wandering around with lupus who don't realize that they've got it.
Exactly. So what are the best sites out there to look out for symptoms? Now, obviously, we all know, like, for example, if you've got a common cold, biggest mistake is going on to Google.
Yeah.
That's the biggest mistake. To say you'll die in 7 days, which clearly you won't. But what are the best websites to go on to check these symptoms?
There's lupustrust.org. And there's lupustrust.org is a really good source in the UK. That's lots of information. And also the Johns Hopkins Lupus Center in the States is perhaps the best source of any information, but it can be a bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
You know, when I wrote my book, I tried to make it practical but also accessible. So it's got people's stories and my story in it as well, as to how I you know, got diagnosed. So Johns Hopkins is very detailed, but it's all there. I think the thing, if you ask what the symptoms are, there are actually 11 official symptoms of lupus, and you need 4 of them, including some complex blood tests, in order to be officially diagnosed.
Yeah.
But the 2 main ones that lots of people experience, 98% of people experience pain. They get pain in their joints and pain in their muscles, and they often feel very, very stiff with it. The second one is fatigue, and about 95% of people experience fatigue with lupus, but it's that plus the joint pain and the stiffness.
Yeah.
And then there are some other distinctive signs like ulcers. A lot of people get really bad mouth ulcers and nasal ulcers, and quite a few people get quite distinctive rashes. They either get the famous butterfly rash, which is across the nose and across the cheeks. And in fact, I was just listening this morning on Loose Women, and Kelly Bryant was on there. You know Kelly Bryant, the Eternal singer. She's now on Hollyoaks. Beautiful lady, and she had lupus. She was diagnosed with cerebral lupus. And she learned to talk again because of the disconnect. I know. And she was saying that she had ulcers. And also she woke up, first of all, she got a stiff finger, and then her whole hands were crabbed in like this. And I remember that. I remember walking around my house with my little hands like little prehistoric claws. Just because of the stiffness and the joints. So yeah, there are some distinctive symptoms. So the thing to do is, I think the problem is that a lot of people get dismissed as perhaps overthinking it and it being all in their head, or it's something else. And I think the thing is to stay on it. If you don't feel yourself and you get symptoms like this, is to make sure that you get to a specialist London lupus centre in order to get some answers, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, with the NHS, my partner's been thinking, oh, here we go again. No, with the NHS, there's just misunderstanding on everything. But do you believe there should be better training out there? More opportunities to do this?
Yeah, I mean, raising awareness of lupus is really important. And in fact, again, the Cambridge University identified that some doctors were misunderstanding one of the blood tests, which is called anti-nuclear antibodies.
Yeah.
And 98% of people who have lupus have got anti-nuclear antibodies, but so do people who don't. But what they were doing was they were using it as a gatekeeper test. And basically, if it was coming up negative once, they were saying, oh, no, you definitely don't have lupus. When in fact, as I said previously, there are 11 distinctive symptoms, and you can still have lupus and not have anti-nuclear antibodies. And the other thing is you should have the test repeated. If everything else is falling into place, you may just not be flaring on that day, and you may need to have it taken like 2 or 3 times in order for it to all fall into place. So they were finding that some doctors who weren't lupus specialists were dismissing clients and saying, no, you haven't got lupus, when in fact they had everything else. So, there was perhaps a degree of ignorance, if you like, even within the medical community, to really understand what was involved in a diagnosis. So yes,
absolutely, yeah. Because obviously with this under diagnosis, that can actually trigger things like anxiety and paranoia and stuff like that.
Yes, it's very perceptive of you to say that, because one of the things that I do is being a psychotherapist, I very often have people come to me who've had very long diagnostic journeys. The average time for people to be diagnosed with lupus is 6.7 years. So it's taking an average of 7 years for people to be diagnosed. So very often people are quite traumatized in some cases by they get to me. The worst thing about it is they're being told that they're depressed or they're anxious rather than having a disease.
Yeah.
And as one client said to me, I'm terribly depressed because I'm in constant pain and I have no energy. So it was difficult, and it's almost like a form of medical gaslighting. Do you understand?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know, when you know that something is wrong and somebody's constantly telling you that it's all in your head and you're imagining it. So there is quite a high proportion of people who are being told that there's a psychological cause rather than there being a physical cause. So this is why it's really important, and I keep talking about it, is what the symptoms are, you know, you're not imagining it, etc., etc. And to keep going. So
yeah, absolutely. And that's why I've become a qualified coach in the last year as well. So
congratulations.
In mental health, yeah. In mental health.
That's superb.
Yeah, I don't have a specific topic. I just cover it all. So yeah. And that's how it is. So like if they come to you for lupus, they can come to me for depression or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. And I help people because lupus can often be life-changing.
It can.
And I help them rebuild their lives. From often, I mean, like me, I ended up in a wheelchair and weighing just 6 stone or sort of 84 pounds. And I had to sort of rebuild from there. It can be absolutely devastating. So I use things like cognitive behavioral therapy to help people rebuild, which you're probably familiar with.
I am, yeah. Very much. So, what are you doing, Kerry? All right, okay. She stood there like a scarecrow. I was like, okay, fine. Whatever floats her boat.
She's looking after you.
What was that?
She's looking after you, isn't she?
More the other way around. Yeah. Oh, I'm getting the look. So, yeah. Anyway. But yeah, you've come so far, and all I've got to say is I'm proud of you.
Oh, thank you, Adam. That's wonderful. Yes, I must admit, I think one of the good things about what I do is I very often recognize when people have really been through it. And I was saying to my husband the other day, the reason I recognize it is because I've been there too.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. And this is why things like mental health and all that, I prefer, my opinion is, I'd rather go to people that's been through it rather than go to people like the NHS and doctors and all that, because they just don't understand.
Yeah.
They don't.
Well, some doctors are excellent. Some doctors are I'm very lucky. My GP is a pain specialist. So he's been hugely supportive. But, you know, when I couldn't swallow, and one of the things about lupus is it can affect the whole of your esophagus, and it can be difficult. So when I couldn't swallow and I was in a lot of nausea because of the acute pain, I found it difficult to swallow and eat things, and I lost quite a lot of weight over a few weeks. And I even had somebody within the medical profession sort of suggest that if I really wanted to eat, I could eat, you know. And it's really, really difficult. And it wasn't until I started researching myself, like I have for the last 9 years, that I realized that dysphagia and problems with the esophagus are really very common with lupus. Yeah, and in fact, I had a client the other day who's been going back and forth to her doctors in the US, and keep saying, look, my throat feels really, really swollen. What's going on? And they're telling her it's not a lupus symptom when it is, when it absolutely is. So this is why it's so good that you're doing this streaming and you're helping to raise awareness, Adam, because the more people know about lupus, the better.
Absolutely, yeah. And obviously since we last spoke, subscribers have come all the time. So obviously, not to put nerves on you, Karen, but we have got over 200 subscribers on YouTube. So
you've grown hugely from when I first. Now you tell me. I've been talking for 15 minutes.
Hey, but don't see it as nerves. See it as an opportunity.
Yes. No. Absolutely. Yes. Very, very much so. Very much so.
And
The other thing about.
Go on, Karen.
And this video will be going into our group, and our group reaches nearly 10,000 people.
Yeah. So obviously, I've got a page on Facebook for Mental Health Warriors.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, we've got over 700 followers on it, but the posts we put out reach nearly 10,000 people. So yeah, so if this video, and I'll even put the previous video as well in there. So if them videos can resonate with anyone, I'll tell them to reach out to you, and I'll even put your website on there as well.
Oh, that would be lovely. That would be fantastic. Yes, because I have a Facebook group called the Lupus Bounce Back Club. And I try and make that full of practical stuff, because I find that even a lot of people with lupus, they're still looking for answers and looking for information. So I watch the forums and the same questions come up. One of the big ones is diet. So I talk to people a lot about what they should eat and shouldn't eat for lupus, because what you want to do is you make sure that you get rid of all the triggers, because there's a lot of foods which trigger lupus symptoms and flares. So I do a lot of talking about that, and a lot of foods which promote inflammation in the body. And lupus is about the body being inflamed and fighting against itself. So I do a lot of information about that, and also about these symptoms. It's amazing how many people are constantly checking, is this a symptom, is this not? Is this a lupus rash? Is this not?
So for the viewers, what is the best type of foods to have when you've got lupus?
The best type of foods is to have really healthy, balanced diet, and to not have and to basically have foods that are low in pesticides and hormones, so homegrown, locally sourced, organic foods, really good, nourishing foods. And then the bad news is that you really can't have white flour, white sugar, and white salt. Those are the real bugbears.
Right. Yes. Okay.
So you have to take, and an awful lot of people who've got lupus are allergic or at least intolerant to wheat. So I advise them to come off of that and follow a largely gluten-free diet.
My partner's giving me a look because she's got a tolerance to wheat flour.
She's intolerant to wheat flour, is she? Yeah. So Kerry knows all about it then. Yeah.
I ain't doing the gluten-free test.
She doesn't want to do the gluten-free test.
Okay, well, she could give me a call and I'll tell her what to eat instead then, that will be low gluten, and there will be very low tolerant, but she can still have some bread, and what she can use is a replacement. Tell her to send me an email.
She likes the chocolate.
Yeah, as long as it's dark chocolate, as long as it's the 70% chocolate.
Chocolate and pop gets me through the day.
She likes any sort of chocolate. She'll have milk chocolate, dark chocolate.
Yeah. It's the white sugar and the corn syrup, unfortunately, that tend to trigger lupus symptoms. So I'm afraid, no, I think you have to, it doesn't matter, I mean, just occasionally, but not every day. Definitely not every day. Sorry, Kerry.
The only time I get migraines is if I eat too much bread.
There you go.
Have too much bread or pasta or anything like that.
Yeah, yeah.
If I limit bread to say 1 sandwich a day, I'm absolutely fine. So I don't think I'm in danger of lupus. I don't think I could survive.
Do you want to come on here?
I don't think I'd be able to survive with no sugar in my life. I wouldn't be able to get through the day without sugar.
What about honey? Do you like honey?
Do you like honey?
I don't like
She don't like honey.
Yes, that would be an issue. Well, you can have unrefined cane sugar is better, but it doesn't sound like Kerry's. It sounds like she's into the white stuff and the glucose. Yeah. It's not the thing
She's
about.
nodding, yeah.
No. Well, the only time I have a problem is if I have too much wheat flour. As long as I limit the amount of wheat flour I have, I can tolerate myself and
You have to
myself.
Yeah. What about
I can't have cereal for breakfast.
What was that? Sorry.
Because pasta is particularly high in gluten, the durum wheat, because that's one of the reasons it's nice and stretchy. So too much pasta will set you off as well, I would imagine.
Yeah, if I have a bowl of cereal for breakfast, that's it for the rest of the day. I can't touch anything wheat flour, so I skip breakfast quite a lot.
Well, as I said, my clients frequently, I do an Eat to Beat Lupus program, and I take everyone through it. It takes numerous weeks, but it takes about 8 weeks for me to get people absolutely rejigged and off onto all the right stuff.
I don't think I'm in danger. I don't think I've got lupus. I think I've just got a wheat flour intolerance.
Well, I hope you don't have lupus, actually, because I have to say it's a very challenging disease. Yes.
It sounds horrible.
Is there any wonder why I'm losing it?
Losing
All right, see you in a bit. Well, this is why I've got some spring onion growing. So yeah.
Right. I'm perplexed, Adam. Why are you growing spring onions?
Nothing wrong with spring onion. I've replanted it.
Oh, right. Okay. Right. Anyway, homegrown vegetables, very good for lupus.
Yeah, that's well, I did buy it, but now I'm replanting it. So yeah. I've just got it in water at the minute. So and it's doing well.
One thing you can't have if you've got lupus is alfalfa.
Is it alfalfa in spring onion?
No, it's not. It's a sort of a little seed that's like a salad herb.
Right.
And you can't have that because it's got natural estrogens in it. And that's not good for lupus. And there are some trigger foods. Some people are allergic to nightshades, which is potatoes and peppers and things like that. But actually, to be honest with you, although it's said to be quite a big lupus trigger, I found that not that many people are. The big problems are the white flour, white sugar, and salt, because the salt, and so pizza and things like that are absolute, and invariably you can find that people love pizza and love their sandwiches and love that sort of thing, and they're just feeling awful on it.
Yeah, right.
So you do have to be, unfortunately, to live well with lupus, you have to be disciplined. You have to know what to eat, what supplements to take, and you really have to know how to pace your life. You know, you have to know when to rest and really look after yourself and learn to ask for help, because that's a really big one.
Because if you don't ask for help, then not only are you possibly doing harm to yourself, but you're holding on to that stigma.
Yes, well, I think there is a stigma. Some people think that lupus is contagious, which it isn't at all. I think a lot of people, there's mild, moderate, and severe lupus, but a lot of people don't fully appreciate just how tough it can get. And I think, even within family and friends, people can say the wrong thing and say, well, if you just made a bit more effort, or if you think positive, you'll be all right, and things like that, which, as you well know, when you're really up against it, is no help at all.
No, there isn't. So what do we do then besides, because obviously we need to start talking out. So what benefits do we need to do to get the people like in charge of the NHS to start getting this out and stop misdiagnosing people?
Well, we're expanding all the time. Cambridge University, under the aegis of somebody called Melanie Sloan, she's been doing a wonderful job producing these brilliant reports showing how much it's being misdiagnosed.
Right.
And she has lupus herself. And also she's been promoting these, and I think there's over 200 organizations involved in today, worldwide. So World Lupus Day has got over 200 organizations involved in order to promote it today, and I think it's just a question of really continuing to talk about it and get it out there. Certainly I'm passionate about making sure nobody feels as lost and alone as I did. I felt totally bewildered, and I was just told that I had something with a very funny name, and I knew nothing about it. I was given one of those fold-out leaflets, one of those little. Yeah. That was it. I was in a wheelchair, and somebody gave me a fold-out leaflet, which sort of said on it, "If you feel tired, rest." It wasn't particularly helpful. No. So I think it's really important. And the other thing is that people who have lupus, they only about 15% of them are getting any kind of counselling or emotional support. And you can imagine that is something which I think is wrong as well.
Because I've just come across this Healthline website around lupus, and it says lupus is an autoimmune disease that causes inflammation in various organs. Symptoms can range from mild to severe to even non-existent, depending on the individual. Common early symptoms include the following: fatigue, fever, joint stiffness, skin rashes, thinking and memory problems, hair loss.
Yes. So I was diagnosed. So there was me. I was a psychotherapist. I was treating young people with severe disabilities, so tetraplegics, quadriplegics, and paraplegics. And I was emergency admitted to hospital with a life-threatening fever. I was 103.6, I think. And I woke up in the morning in terrible pain. And within 2 weeks, I was diagnosed with severe lupus, with a flare, because that's when the disease goes bananas. Top 2%, they said, my consultant, my flare was in the top 2% in terms of severity. I narrowly avoided a liver transplant, and I completely lost my spleen. The lupus just destroyed my spleen, so I don't have it.
Yeah.
And Selena Gomez, do you know the pop star?
Yeah.
Selena Gomez? She lost her kidney to lupus. Her friend Francia donated her kidney to Selena Gomez because of lupus. Yeah. So kidney involvement is quite common. So you have to be, the more severe forms of lupus, you have to watch your major organs. So it's really good to get diagnosed early and to get on the right meds and the right treatment as well.
See, I know how it feels to live with one kidney because I'm doing that myself. So, yeah.
Yeah? You've got one kidney?
Yeah. Not because of lupus, because obviously from when I was a child. So, yeah. Right.
So, yeah. So lupus.
So I do know.
So you do know what that means.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So it can be very severe, and people can walk around not aware that they've got it.
Exactly. Well, obviously this link's from 2018, so 3 years ago. That it says, according to the Johns Hopkins Lupus Center, around one in 2,000 people in the United States have lupus. So, obviously, the figures may have changed since. So,
mostly affects women. It's mostly affects, it appears with women between the ages of 14 and 45 is when it first starts to manifest. And it also manifests more in women of color. So Black American women, people with Hispanic genetics, it can affect them more and more severely. So it's a gender and an ethnicity issue as well. So it's really important that, you know, women talk up about it.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm just coming across the people that's actually got it. It's like, wow. Some men, some females. So
there's actually 4 kinds of lupus, but the most common one is systemic lupus erythematosus. And that basically affects the whole body and the organs. There's one that just affects the skin, and the most high profile example of that is Seal, the pop star.
Yeah, I've just come across him. Yeah.
You know, with those distinctive marks he has on his cheeks.
Facial, yeah.
They're from discoid lupus in his teens.
Yeah.
I always thought there were some really cool sort of tribal markings, but they're not. They're from discoid lupus. And some people who've got discoid, it becomes systemic. Yeah. But so most people have SLE, systemic lupus erythematosus.
It is. It's scary stuff.
Oh, it's a very, very serious illness, very challenging. So one lady, I came across a story where there was a lady who was in the armed forces, and she kept going to her doctor saying she was in pain and she felt stiff and she wasn't feeling very well. And they kept ignoring it. She got diagnosed with depression, and she kept feeling this way. And eventually she ended up in A&E being diagnosed with meningitis because she had a rash and the pain was so severe they thought it was meningitis. But it wasn't. It was a severe lupus flare. So that just shows you just how extreme and tough lupus can be when it wants to.
It is. It just makes you speechless on this, doesn't it?
Well, even you, Adam. That doesn't sound very likely to me.
I know. Hey, I don't talk that much. But yeah, it is. It's because obviously before I came across it, I never heard of it before, and I'm 30 going on 80, so yeah.
Well, I mean, I think we spoke before on the last thing. It dates all the way back to the 40. Well, Hippocrates, who is the author of the Hippocratic Oath. So he mentioned it right back in Roman times about this disease that had a rash. But it was the 1400s that somebody described it as it looked as though the patient had been bitten in the face by a wolf.
Yeah.
So that's why it's called lupus, because lupus is the Latin for wolf.
Yeah.
And it's why my book has a wolf on the front of it.
Yeah.
But I must admit, when I was first diagnosed, I knew nothing of this. I just thought it was something with a very funny sounding name.
Yeah, it says here, the familial occurrence of systematic lupus was first noted by Leonhardt in 1954 and later studies by Arnott and Shulman at Johns Hopkins.
Yes, there's a genetic element to lupus. About 20% of people with lupus have got one other family member with it. So they know it's a genetic, and still not sure what triggers it or what causes it. Sometimes stress or overexertion can trigger a flare. Yeah. Sometimes hormonal things. Sometimes people who are pregnant, it gets worse. Some people, it can get better. So it depends. But they're not quite sure what triggers the flares, so to speak. And they're not quite sure why one family member gets it and it manifests and one doesn't. But yeah, it's about a 20% genetic element is as close as they've got at the moment.
Yeah, it says here from 27th of January 2021, lupus is it's likely that lupus results from a combination of your genetics and your environment. It appears that people with an inherited predisposition for lupus may develop the disease when they come into contact with something in the environment that can trigger lupus. The cause of lupus in most cases, however, is unknown.
Yes. They just don't know what makes it go severe or not. So yeah, it's it's so much better to get it early and get it controlled. So the basic meds are anti-malarials. So that's the basic, which is the sort of basic anti-inflammatory. And if you can get on those early, it can stop organ damage, and it can prevent the lupus progressing or working away mildly underneath the surface. That's it.
It is. It's absolutely crazy stuff.
But you can survive, and you can live a good, productive, happy life with lupus, as long as you know what you're doing, and you do have to respect it. You have to understand that you've got a chronic condition, and it deserves respect. You will need help, you need advice, but you can live a very happy and productive life. I mean, Kelly Bryant was on Loose Women earlier saying, with the right infusions, she's rebuilt her life, and she now appears on Loose Women and Hollyoaks.
I thought someone was trying to get in my garden then. So, yeah. But anyway.
So
I just don't know what to say about it. It's so big.
Yeah, it is big. And I think the other thing is 5 million people. I'm quite convinced, Adam, that there are far more people wandering around with lupus who are not being diagnosed. I think there's more people with lupus than they realize. So it means that's quite a big medical condition. The only thing is that at the moment, there is no specific drug. There isn't a cure for it. So they can manage the condition, but they're finding it difficult. And I'm hopeful that it's quite similar to long COVID. The symptoms are quite similar to long COVID. And they're doing a lot of research, and they're throwing a lot of money at long COVID. And I know that there are people within the lupus community who are very sort of experienced and understand it, who are quite hopeful that maybe something will come out of the research into long COVID that might help people with lupus.
Yeah.
So there is hope. And I mean, the way that we've done these brilliant and amazing vaccines, and the UK is now such a fabulous centre of excellence on, biotech and medical research. There's hope that they may find, something that's a lot more specific for lupus, and that can actually help women more, really.
Yeah.
So there's hope.
There is. So all I've got to say is thank you for this catch up.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me on, as I say, on such an important day.
It is. And we should do this in 12 months' time.
10th of May. It's a date.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. See how we both got on. You'll have 20,000 by then.
Who knows?
30. Who knows?
Who knows? Let's see. But on that note, I'm going to end this podcast. Thanks to everyone tuned in. Thanks to everyone that's going to tune in on replay. And all I've got to say is bye for now.
See you, Adam. Thanks ever so much.